Hello, my name is Alex, and this is my final semester of my undergraduate experience at Mercer, in which I have spent the last 3 years studying English literature as well as French. And I wanted to explain during this episode how and why both of my majors connect to each other through this research that I've done for my transnational francophone literature class, my last French class, maybe ever, who knows. But I spent my time trying to answer this question of identity, or I suppose character. I'm going in between the two words, which really came to me in a later conclusion when my professor asked me if you've grown tired of the word identity and you're using character, then what's the difference between the two? And while I was thinking on the podium, I thought back to what my English teacher had told me later, earlier in the week, was why do we even study literature or fiction in particular? Pays Sans Chapeau is an auto-fictitious book, which is based off the author's real life and his travels back in his native country, which is Haiti, after being in exile for 20 years in Canada. And I thought about this and I was like, well, identity is kind of this idea that you have in your head. Psychologically, it's what you tell yourself. But your character is the culmination of your experiences in life, and it is what you do in life. It's your actions, whereas identity is just mainly resting in your head. It's kind of even your perception of yourself. And so I was faced with this challenge of understanding the identity that Danny Laferriere was trying to understand himself in Pays Sans Chapeau, because there's this duality of I'm Haitian, this is my origins, but I'm also now Canadian. And this phenomenon was kind of culminating in this worldly figure, in this kind of perception of ourselves that we can see as the world has become smaller and smaller through technology and the ways that we can communicate with one another, as well as having more reach out in specific languages, namely French, as this is what Pays Sans Chapeau is written in rather than Haitian Creole. So I was going through the history of Creolite versus Negritude, which La Negritude was a movement in the 1930s, which was specifically meant to go against white culture, or this default whiteness that was taking over during kind of obviously after the French colonization of Haiti, and during the American colonization of Haiti. And in an interview with another well-known Haitian writer, Raphael Confiant, he says that the difference between la négritude and la créolité is that with créolité, he says, on a réussi à se refaire, il y a une forte résilience et la langue et la culture créole sont la manifestation de cette résilience. So la créolité takes la négritude to a whole new level. It takes it to this manifestation, so this character rather than just this identity. So this action of living out what you're thinking. So practice what you preach, that old saying. So la manifestation de cette résilience, Confiant says, which is shown through the usage of French, the adaptation of French, that I talk about a lot in my paper. I found an interesting quote throughout my research, which was translated from French to English, but I can imagine what the French would be, and specifically the last word of it. So this quote is, What would become of us lost in the mass of enslaved New World blacks, a pinch of Anglo-Saxon dust? The more we hold onto our French culture, the more likely we are to keep our Haitian personality. And that word personality, I can only imagine, was originally the word caractère, which is clearly not identity. So this muchness of these people that makes them so special. And so I took that and I was applying this sentiment to what I had read in Pays Sans Chapeau and what I had read about Pays Sans Chapeau. And really my overall conclusion was the very beginning of the book. In the very beginning, Danny Laferrière, he says, Je n'écris pas, je parle. On écrit avec son esprit, on parle avec son corps. Je ressens ce pays physiquement. Je suis chez moi. So he says, I don't write, I'm speaking. We speak, or so we write with the spirit, we speak with the body. I feel this country physically. I am home, which kind of makes this distinction between, once again, what we have inside our head and what we do actually outside in the physical world. And my ultimate conclusion came from this statement, as well as the very end. So kind of ironic how the beginning and the end make the conclusion, was when the alter ego of Danny Laferrière, the main character of Pays Sans Chapeau, who calls himself Vieuxo, so Old Bones, when he's speaking to this painter, and the painter is painting something, and he's like, this isn't exactly what you're actually seeing. It wasn't anything that was clearly realistic. And the quote there says, Ce que je peins, c'est le pays que je rêve, le pays réel, monsieur. Je n'ai pas besoin de le rêver. So what I'm painting is the country that I dream of, the real country, my sir. I don't need to dream of it. So this is giving the reader a final look as to how he is the main character is choosing to view Haiti through this painter in its entirety. There's no need to dream about what is real, because what he dreams about is more important than what is real. Vieuxo does not want to focus on what is necessarily not beautiful. He wants to capture what he knows. And Haiti at its core, despite the outward ugliness that others might point at, what the painter chooses to paint is what he wants to see, and what the author chooses to write is what he wants to read. What the poet or painter or writer can agree on is that the way we close to what is close to our view is what defines our personal identities and what manifests in our characters. So all of this to say that the journey between exile, writing, publishing, and just simply living is the accumulation of all of this history in people trying to figure out what their identity is, and how we take this and manifest it into our lives. And I'm going to give a small summary in French. Donc, j'ai recherché le roman Paye son chapeau qui a été écrit par Danny Laferrière. C'est un roman qui raconte l'histoire de l'auteur comme auto-ego de Vieuxo. Et c'est en critique de la créolité et aussi le monde qu'on habite maintenant. Ça montre aussi l'évolution de l'identité ou le caractère d'un peuple, spécifiquement les Haïtiens. Mais aussi, on peut aussi faire une une plus grande spéculation de la question de l'identité dans ce monde maintenant avec les 2 années passées. Et aussi, c'est aussi une réponse à la grande question que j'ai découvert pendant mes cours d'anglais. Ce semestre, c'est pourquoi est-ce qu'on étudie la fiction du tout? Et c'est juste une autre façon de découvrir la condition humaine et comment on peut manifester toutes nos idées en réalité. And it is there that I will end my episode. Thank you.